Welcome to Days of Roar, Detroit Tigers podcast, brought to you by the Detroit Free Press. My name is Mark Gorash. I am here with Tigers beat writer Evan Petzold. After a monstrous Miguel Cabrera party weekend and the end of the 2023 baseball season, Evan Petzold, you don't have anywhere to go tomorrow morning. What a great day Tuesday is going to be for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. AJ Hinch, though, said today that it's not the off season, it's just the non-game season. So I kind of feel the same way at certain times, but it definitely is going to be nice to be able to, again, like that this is my bread and butter, man, is to be able to have some of these stories, like I said last week, that I'm really excited to write more, player by player reflection, type story that kind of looks back on, what did they learn? Like, what did they take away? What's their game plan for the off season? Like, I love those stories, and it's waking up in the morning, getting up at 9 a.m., getting the coffee going and kind of typing away and, kind of seeing where the day takes me. But like those are the best days. Like I love that mindset that I'm in when I'm writing. So it was a long season. It was a grind. I mean, when you think about going from the Super Bowl until now, that's a lot of time, and it's games every day because that's how it is. Like in Lakeland, you get down there and clubhouse opens up and there's, practice stuff that goes on where it's, guys are throwing bullpens and then they're going to do some live BPs. And then, games get going pretty quick down in Lakeland. And from that point on, it basically feels like there's a game every single day. It's a long season, but I'm happy with how it went.
And let me remind our listeners who work every day and work hard every day. On Saturday, when you're probably not working, Evan Petzold's working. And on Sunday, when you're rarely working, Evan Petzold's working.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. Monday, I'm excited to get. Yeah, no. Okay, go ahead. Do your thing. I'll let you give me the praise.
And on Monday, when there's an off day and the Tigers aren't playing, Evan Petzold's likely still working or traveling or flying back from Oakland or doing something. Okay. So the grind of being a beat writer beginning, last week of February, finally ended, and you get to, at least for a little while, live a more normal life like the rest of us
definitely do. Has like 9 to 5 vibes right now. So that's pretty much what it is. And that's really nice. Like I love that. And there's flexibility within that too, where, I can work ahead, get certain things done. If I want to go golf in the morning, I'm able to go golf in the morning. But then, my day kind of turns into, maybe that's more of a 12 to 7 than that day. Regardless, like those are really nice things. And I'm happy for the offseason. It's great to be able to now, as a married man, spend a lot of time with my wife and time with family. And those are things that, I don't really get the opportunity to do. I don't get to go to like 4th of July parties. I'm working. I don't get to go to, weekends away up north with family, right? Because I'm working. And so to be able to get some of that now, I do my very best to cherish those moments and just be super present in them. So looking forward to it. But again, it was a great season, and it was also like an awesome week for the Tigers. Just first and foremost, it was a 5-1 week since April 13th, 76 and 75 to finish the season. That's 151 games where they played above 500 ball. I think that's really impressive. And then obviously the Miguel Cabrera weekend that was just amazing. Like hat tip to the Tigers, the way they handled it. Hat tip to AJ Hinch. I mean, holy shit, AJ Hinch. That was really impressive. And obviously hat tip to Miguel Cabrera for a legendary career. I don't know. I got reflective a lot this weekend, just thinking a lot about, my grandpa and thinking about my dad and thinking about, my childhood growing up, all of us from Michigan. Me growing up in Detroit, my grandpa has stories on stories on stories about Al Kaline. My dad is the same way with Alan Trammell. And like, I remember growing up and my dad telling me, Evan, you got to watch this guy. You got to watch this guy. You're not going to see anything like it. And I'm so happy that he said that, because I got a chance to really enjoy Miguel Cabrera, both as a fan of Miguel Cabrera, as like a baseball person, as somebody who just really loves the game. Then obviously got to see a totally different side of him covering the team. And it's cool because my grandpa has stories about Al Kaline. My dad has stories about Tram, and I have stories about Miguel Cabrera, but I also have stories in a way that like they can't talk about Al Kaline and Alan Trammell the way that I can talk about Miguel Cabrera. And I think that's really cool. And so that kind of kicked in for me. It was amazing. It was really awesome. So shout out to the Tigers, shout out to AJ Hinch, and shout out to Miguel Cabrera, a living legend.
Well, I'd like to say, for all the times I like to take down the Tigers PR department, and obviously I have my reasons, and I do blow them up about more than anyone. I'd like to compliment them of what a just absolutely tremendous job between the PR, the marketing, the event staff, every human being that works down at Comerica. It was a weekend that
it was first class. It was first class type of stuff.
Class all the way, 100%. Class all the way. Fans had a great time for 3 straight days. The event on Saturday was great. The event Sunday, you wondered how they could top Saturday. And the baseball gods were with them because in every way humanly possible, they made it the most special day for Miguel you could possibly do. But even just the little small touches that you might not appreciate as much at the time, he will appreciate 25 years from now that his kids got to announce his first at bat and they got to run out on the field and walk him off. Those are just the kind of things that you can appreciate, but you can't really appreciate them until later when you get a chance to reflect.
It's everything. I mean, it's everything, Mark. It's the kids up there saying, first off, it starts with the first pitch, right? And then before his first at bat, like they get to go up there and they get to announce over the loudspeakers, it's now batting number 24, our father, Miguel Cabrera. And, Miguel kind of puts his head down a little bit, gives like kind of a nod and a smile, but like you could tell that was special for him. He did not see that coming. It's hard to surprise Miguel Cabrera. He likes to have his plan. He likes to know kind of, okay, what's the game plan for me over the next 3 series? When am I going to play? He's got a lot he has to take care of, right? Like his body is not in good shape. So all season long, and even going back to when AJ Hinch got hired, like planning these things out for Miguel was always paramount. Like that was so important, to helping him get through, these final, 3-4 seasons was like, got to have a plan for him. You can't catch him off guard with anything. And AJ Hinch did a great job with that. Miguel Cabrera did a great job working with AJ Hinch. But it was so cool to see some of those subtle surprises, man. It was the first pitch. It was announcing, his first at bat. And then when he came off the field, AJ Hinch walks out there and, goes to make the lineup change. And when he walks out there to Miguel to take him out of the game, his kids are right there with him. And AJ Hinch, again, like I just keep going back to this because, there is a feel as a manager. You have to have feel in a situation like that. You can't just say, okay, whenever it seems like the best moment, whatever, we'll just like go with it. Like, no, like you want to find the perfect moment. And AJ Hinch has never had to do that for any player before. I mean, like there have been send-offs, there have been, curtain calls that he's been a part of, but nothing like this. I mean, this is a legendary type of player. This is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And for him to not pull him off the field after the 4-pitch walk in the 7th inning, I was like, okay, I thought that was the perfect time. And I think a lot of fans did too. They started cheering for him, but he stays in the game to run the bases, grounds into a double play. And I'm just going to tell the story of how it goes down. I mean, grounds into a double play, comes back to the dugout, and I'm watching Miguel's every move because I'm like, okay, like what's going on here? And is he really going to get a chance to play first base? And I see AJ go talk to him. And then Miguel spends the rest of that half inning, I think it was just the final out, but there was a double from Vierling and then an out after that. And so he had a minute and he was talking to Torkelson. And I said, oh boy, here we go. When he's talking to Torkelson like that, like almost kind of game planning for something. And I had to figure he's taking over first base. What I didn't understand is that Miguel Cabrera doesn't have a glove. He threw his glove away in spring training because he wasn't going to play first base anymore. And I mean, it's what the hell? Why do I need a glove? I'm not playing first base. And so he needed an extra glove from Torkelson. Torkelson says, I don't have an extra glove that's broken in, but you can take my glove. And so Torkelson gives Cabrera the glove, which is nicknamed Gamer. That's the nickname of the glove. And Miguel Cabrera goes out there and none of his teammates join him. And he gets to have his moment there at first base. And I'm listening to Dan Dickerson on the call. I'm also listening to the atmosphere. And Dan Dickerson is like, okay, maybe he's going to throw some warm-up tosses and then they're going to, make the send-off. They leave him in there for a play. And AJ Hinch was thinking, okay, maybe 1 play, maybe 2 plays. We'll see how it goes. He wanted Miguel Cabrera to touch the ball, whether that was a ground ball to the infield and, Miguel catches it and that's it. That would have been perfect. it was even better than that. Again, shout out baseball gods. Like Torkelson believes in him. I guess maybe I'll have to believe a little bit too, but like it was so beautiful. The ground ball from Kwon, the pick on the backhand, it was so beautiful. And it was the second pitch. The first pitch strike on the outside corner to Kwon. Second pitch, slider at the bottom of the zone from Will Vest. And he just pulls it right to Cabrera, Backhand, runs, beats him to the bag, points his finger in the air, pumps his chest coming around. It was beautiful. It was just beautiful. It was.
Like a movie. Like a damn movie.
Gives the glove back to Torkelson, signs the glove. They also put a ton of things on the glove. There's four-time batting champ, 12-time All-Star, 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, Triple Crown 2012, AL MVP 2012-13, signed by Cabrera, given to Torkelson. He's going to keep it. He's going to put it in the man cave. That's Torkelson's gift. I mean, like, just amazing. And then Cabrera walks out of the clubhouse, and what does he say to his teammates? See you in spring training.
So let's talk a little bit about a couple of things that, obviously only you can shed light on. So I've seen a picture. There's actually a beautiful picture that Jeff Rieger took of the scrum around Miguel in the locker room, and who is looking right in the middle of it, right next to Miguel, and looking pretty nice and handsome right in the picture for posterity.
Stop it.
Evan Petzold. Okay. And, but the scrum was pretty great. So tell me about the scrum. And then, I know that you've got to spend time with him this weekend a few times one-on-one a little bit. And you got to exchange some pleasantries and some congratulations. And, you did have a little bit of, you talked with each other a little bit, and it probably was a really great way to be able to send off a legend.
Yeah, I mean, it was just thank you. I mean, that's really what it was. The whole weekend was thank you, Miguel Cabrera. And for me personally, like it's thank you, Miguel Cabrera. Like, again, you have to remember, like, I grew up when he was winning Triple Crowns. I grew up when, he was winning MVPs, when he was a batting champ. I mean, we talk about the numbers, right? We go back and look at it, and like the numbers were incredible from 2011 to 2014. I wrote about it in the story. I love the story that I wrote. I thought it turned out really well. I normally don't say that about pieces that I write because I'm my own harshest critic, but I do really think that what I was able to write turned out great with, Ozzie Guillen, Magglio Ordonez, Victor Martinez, Bobby Abreu, Dave Concepcion, all talking about Miguel Cabrera. Also did a side story with just Dave Concepcion, who, that was Miguel Cabrera's idol growing up. And I'm writing these stories, and I'm just kind of thinking more about it as it goes on. And I've always known this, and I've always acknowledged this, but at the same time, like as his career winds down, you really do get a feel for like, yeah, this was the guy that I was watching when I was in, I was in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. Like this was kind of my guy. Like this was the reason I turned on the Tigers, was because one, they were really good, and two, they had Miguel Cabrera like doing unbelievable things that you couldn't even imagine. And so, yeah, like I just said thank you to him and got to shake his hand. And then I was hanging out in the clubhouse just waiting for Javier Baez. And, Miguel comes up to me and he thanks me again. And I told him, I said, thank you for your whole career. Like, I'm not doing this if you're not doing what you did. You inspired me. And thank you. And so it was something along the lines of that. And that was a lot. That meant a lot to me. Like, that was really important to me to be able to say thank you in that way, because he really did make a pretty big impact on me and, my love for the game and the reason why I'm doing this now. Like, I always went to games and I would look up at the press, but I would look up at the press box. Like, I would go to games to see Verlander, and Miguel Cabrera. And those are the guys that I wanted to go see all the time. And I loved all the guys in that roster. Like, some of the favorite players of my time growing up, it was like Magglio Ordonez or like Don Kelly. Like, I like the non-superstar guys. But yeah, you want to go see Miguel. And I would always look back up at the press box and I would say, man, like, it'd be really cool to sit up there one day. And so, yeah, like, it is special.
And just hopefully I'm not telling this story out of school, but he had a little kind of a nickname for you. You might going to share that or not?
I mean, it's just skinny in Spanish, so it's Flaco.
Yeah, he used to call you Flaca because you're a tall, thin drink of water. So, yeah. But I think there have been a lot of jokes along the way, some of which, like I've said on podcasts before, I can't tell right now. But
right. I don't know. Maybe one day, long down the road.
But look, anytime Miguel Cabrera is got a nickname for you, it's not like that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him in spring training. Like I'm excited to see this guy in spring training when he shows up. It sounds like from the way that people are talking about him in the clubhouse on his last day, he seemed to tell the team that maybe he might be the first person in spring training. So we'll see about that. But I'm excited. I'm happy he's staying with the organization as a special assistant. I think that it's going to be whatever he wants to make it. And I think he's going to be really good at it if he wants to be really good at it. And I hope that he takes it, enjoys it, becomes the Alan Trammell type version of hitting. I think him and Alan Trammell would be a hell of a duo in spring training. I think that'd be pretty badass. And Alan Trammell in spring training is the best because he loves talking baseball. He lets you pick his brain. He is like hands down the best. And hopefully Miguel Cabrera does the same. I would be honored to learn more from him.
Yeah, and Lou likes to come to spring training sometimes too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Lou does some good stuff in spring training. All right, so I'm sure we'll tell more funny Miguel stories either tonight or as the offseason goes on, because you and I both love Miguel Cabrera, and there's lots of Miguel stories. So question 2 of the big 2. You wanted to wait to do the pod till today or tomorrow. We decided to do it tonight. And there was what we call like a big exit meeting or a summation of the season and a little bit about expectations for next year. They have a presser. It's mostly Scott Harris, but there is some AJ Hinch involved. So why don't you give us the rundown?
Yeah, quick rundown is that it was a very long press conference, and hat tip to Scott Harris and AJ Hinch. And again, Tigers PR, like we can be critical when it's time to be critical, but at the same time, I always want to pay it back when I feel like they've done a really good job. And to sit there and take questions for 55 minutes and then also, take some time to, just kind of have conversations off the record and stuff like that off to the side about, I don't know, basic stuff, right? Like off-season stuff and, what their plans are, like personally and stuff like that, and just how they're doing and like all those kind of things. Like it's just good relationship building to kind of do some of those things off the side. But like regardless, they sat there and they answered questions on the record for almost an hour. So credit to them for that, because that could have been a quick like 20-minute thing. Let's get out of here, wrap it up, it's done. I'll tell you, I was at the ballpark today for, more than 2 hours. So I think that tells you a lot about like how that went, right? It was a really good conversation. There were a lot of good talking points, and I really appreciate all the time. I think all of us do that were there. The big conversation pieces, and just to run down a couple of things, there are 3 contract decisions. We can get into more of that after we take a break, but Javier Baez, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Carson Kelly, there are all contract decisions to be made. The Tigers are not in control of all of those decisions. They are in control of one of those choices in terms of how they want to move forward with one of those 3 players. There's also kind of a little talk about contract extensions. When could we maybe see an extension for Torkelson, for Green, for Kerry Carpenter? What about Tarek Skubal? It sounds like the Tigers are not ready to lock those players up to long-term contracts with pre-arbitration extensions. Harris has always been open-minded to it, but doesn't sound like that's going to be happening at this time or even into the offseason. I would say for that, just reading the room and kind of getting a feel for where they're at, I would say keep an eye out for contract extensions after the 2024 season. I think they probably just need to get a little bit more info on some of these guys, especially, for Torkelson and for Green and for Carpenter. So I really wouldn't look too deeply into ideas of contract extensions. Like, I guess if the conversation pops up and like it is right for them and they're able to feel like they're getting an insane deal on a player, like maybe, but Harris's quote I thought was pretty telling. I'm going to read it to you now. It was, quote, "I just hope that we can get to a place where we can find players that we really want to extend and get it done, and then announce it to you guys and talk about how excited we are," end quote. That quote kind of tells me that they're still trying to find players to extend. So probably no extensions coming. Other conversation pieces, Austin Meadows, they're going to have to get on the phone with him soon and just talk to him about his situation. It doesn't sound like he's going to be tendered a contract just based on the way that conversation kind of went today. Scott Harris hasn't.
Can we discuss that for a second?
Yeah. I
mean, just without getting too much into the minutia for people, I just want to bring up a couple of procedural aspects of this discussion. Okay. First of all, it's got a lot of layers. It's not as simple as you're either here or you're not here. It's just not that simple. They could put him on, depending on the feedback that Austin gives, and don't discount the idea that Austin Meadows not only A, wants to play, but B, wants to play with his brother, okay, is factoring into some of the underlying aspect of the decision. But two, in baseball, there's something called the restricted list, okay? And you can go on the restricted list when there's extenuating circumstances like this, and you don't get paid, but the team still maintains control of your rights. And until Austin, look, Austin Meadows, nobody is giving Austin Meadows a major league contract after 2 years of sitting out for mental health issues. I'm just explaining to you the nature of the industry. Would you agree with that or not? Anybody that signs him more likely than not is going to...
That's the facts.
Okay. It's going to be a minor league deal. He's not going to be on the 40. And that's for whoever that was with. Okay. It could be a make good. It could be, it could be a two-way deal. There's a lot of things. But that being said, let's be clear. Austin Meadows has made like $8 million the last 2 years for basically playing 2.5 months of the baseball season.
Mark?
Yeah.
42 games.
42 games, $8 million. I think he made $4 million both years, right?
$8.3 million.
There you go. So it's not like Austin, there's no money leveraging issue here. So it becomes totally 100% about, mental health, comfort, ability to perform his job and, how he feels, which is first and foremost the only thing that's important. And I think if you give, Austin Meadows an opportunity to play again, it'd be hard to say that he would not want to try to play again for the Detroit Tigers for multiple reasons. Okay. So I still think the restricted list is a possibility, or he could agree to come off the 40 and sign a minor league deal. He could do that. Right.
So yeah, I think there are possible avenues to keeping him on the roster. The thing that people need to understand too is that he is entering his final year of arbitration eligibility. So the Tigers only have team control of him through the 2024 season. So they have control of him through next season, and then that's it. Now, arbitration process, just so people understand, he made $4 million in his first season with the Tigers, and he made $4.3 million in his next season. Remember, he didn't do much in his first season. He also hasn't done anything in his second season, but that number is probably going to go up a little bit again. It's probably going to go up to maybe 4.4 or something along those lines. We don't really ever see salary arbitration numbers go down. Now, again, this is kind of a different circumstance, so maybe it does. But I do like the idea of the restricted list. I don't know all the details about what it takes to be placed on the restricted list, what that looks like. Does the player have to, can the team just do that? Does the player have to sign off in a situation like this where it is, mental health related? I have no idea what the details of the restricted list entail, but I do think it's a perfect idea to keeping him on the roster, keeping him around, bring him back for $4 million, whatever it ends up being through the salary arbitration process, put him on the restricted list. And then if there's an opportunity that he's able to come play and he's able to show that he's able to do it, okay, then you put him through a rehab assignment, and if he's ready, you bring him back. I think it's a great idea. Moving on to the next topic, Spencer Turnbull. He was also talked about. I wrote it in my story today. I'm going to say it here. The Spencer Turnbull saga was exhausting, and it really was. It was exhausting to even just be around. So the Tigers are hoping now that Turnbull's going to report to spring training, and it sounds like they're going to, tender him a contract. Same thing with the salary arbitration process. It sounds like they're going to bring him back, and they're going to expect him to report to Lakeland and prepare as a starting pitcher and compete for a job. So hopefully he shows up. Again, that's probably a bigger question mark than anything. I think that was some of the messaging that we saw today. It was, again, to read Scott Harris's quote, "We got to find a way to get the best version out of Spencer. It starts with reflecting on the season, planning for the offseason, and making sure he shows up in Lakeland ready to compete for a job," end quote. So that seems to be the message there, is hey, you better show up and be a part of it. I do want to touch on one more thing before we get off of this, is infrastructure developments. Scott Harris talked about several projects They purchased new land for a new complex in the Dominican Republic. That's for like young international players that are signed, through the international signing period. I think that that's much needed. Scott Harris thinks that's going to allow them to really, boost and beef up, their international presence. We'll see about that. I still think you got to have the right guys in place to go get those dudes. So we'll see if they're able to target those players at a very, very young age, and then get them into the academy there at 16 years old. And I'm sure the new complex will help them out. They're also working on a new dorm building in Lakeland that will include several developmental features. I'm not sure exactly what those developmental features are, but there will be developmental features, whatever that means. Tigers are also working on a baseball expansion projects in Lakeland. There's going to be a covered field, new batting cages, and new mounds. And they're also beginning the second phase of their clubhouse and performance center renovations at Comerica Park. Before the season, if you guys don't remember, they built the new kitchen, they cleaned up the weight room, and they also redesigned the clubhouse where the players hang out. They're also about to debut a new team plane, so that will be in full force in 2024. And then Harris also said that the Tigers are making, quote, very significant investments, end quote, in technological improvements. And he said those upgrades are very expensive, but Tigers got to do them. So that's kind of a little update on kind of the key talking points. There was a lot else that was talked about, and we can get into more of that. A lot of it revolves around, these three guys, Eduardo Rodriguez, Javier Baez, Carson Kelly. Also, some really good comments from both Scott Harris and AJ Hinch. Harris talking about building a team and spending, and didn't really talk about budget specifically, but kind of did talk about, budgetary strategies. And then also AJ Hinch commenting on his commitment to stick around with the Tigers and see this thing through.
All right. We're going to get into all of that. I'm going to give you my response on a few of those topics. Then we'll get into some of the Hinch Harris stuff, team building, the three guys. But first, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Let's get into a couple of the easy topics here, and we'll get into 2 minutes of mean Mark. Look, Spencer Turnbull, I've said my piece about Spencer a long time ago, said it many times, and bottom line is he's going to be 31 years old when the season starts next year. Was drafted in 2014. He's pitched 3 good months for the Tigers. He's been injured about, I think I counted 27 times. He's an enigma. This year was a debacle. He pitched 31 innings. He had a 7.26 ERA. I think, the time has come for, I don't think Spencer Turnbull throws another inning for the Detroit Tigers. And I do think there will be some trades made this offseason. The Tigers have numerous parts they can weave together to make some deals. And I am pretty confident Spencer Turnbull will be used to barter as a throw-in in one of those trades.
I disagree on something you said, but
I'm listening.
All right.
What do you disagree about?
I think he'll throw another inning for the Tigers. I don't think he has any trade value right now, but I do think that this situation presents itself where the Tigers in spring training could go, okay, we're going to have them build up as a starter. They want all their guys to build up as a starter, but they're going to have to pick. I mean, they've got a lot of pitching depth up and down their organization. And I'm not saying that they have a bunch of aces that they're ready to unload 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in that rotation, but there are a lot of guys to pick from. From your Alex Faedos, who's probably going to end up in the bullpen. To, your right. But they want them to build up as a starter. They're going to have them prepare and come into spring training as starters and then define their roles. That's how it's going to be. Top to bottom, whether that's Tarek Skubal coming in as a starter, Alex Faedo coming in as a starter. And then they're going to be able to either, drop those innings down, or maybe they want Alex Faedo to start again in Toledo and they like what they see. I doubt that, but again, it leaves them that option. Turnbull, we're going to get into the roster, not tonight. For sure. But Turnbull, same. So this is where I'm going with this, though. Is Turnbull same thing? Build him up as a starter. At the end of spring training, you can say, or midway through spring training, whenever, you can say, hey, look, here's the deal. Bullpen or Toledo, take your pick.
Yeah, we're wasting way too much time on Spencer Turnbull because it's a real simple decision to me. Okay? Here's the deal. In business, I don't care if it's in baseball, I don't care what kind of business you're in. When it's you have a team of people. You either with us or you against us. Okay? And I'm telling you, the Detroit Tigers do not consider Spencer Turnbull being with them. All right. So he has thrown his last pitch as a Tiger. I said this in May, and he's done everything humanly possible to make that dream come true.
We'll see.
So let's move on from that. All right, let's talk about the three pretty big decisions on actual players that could be a part of 2023. Let's take the easy one first. Carson Kelly.
I don't know if Carson Kelly is an easy decision. Do you?
I think it's
slam dunk bringing back,
because it's cut. Well, it's a cut and dried thing. Okay, either they want to pay him $3.5 million, or they say to him, "Hey, look, we want you to come back. We'll sign you to a deal. We just don't want to pay you $3.5 million. We want to pay you $2.5 million." Okay,
right.
And then Carson Kelly,
and I think when we're debating between $2.5 million, $3.5 million, they're just going to bring him back. I think it makes too much sense not to. That's my take on it. I don't think they have catching depth in that sense yet. I think Dylan Dingler. It can be a guy as a backup behind Jake Rogers who could provide you some pop, who's going to be able to, handle a pitching staff, but he still needs a little bit more seasoning in Toledo, I believe. And I think it allows for a perfect transition at some point during the season if Carson Kelly just isn't producing and they need to step away from him and bring Dingler into the mix. But you have to have a number two going into camp, I feel like. And so I think he provides the perfect option for that.
Look, let me ask you a question. Was Carson Kelly a major league catcher? Did he do a pretty good job, regardless of what the numbers were telling you for the 5 weeks you watched him here?
Yes.
Absolutely yes. Okay. Major league all the way. Did nothing but get better. Very competent, if not better than that defensively. Probably will hit better next year because was mostly trying to figure out the pitching staff this year. Like the sequencing, like this throwing, like this blocking. Just, he was a pro. Liked everything about him.
He's a good number two.
He's solid. We're, probably expensive at $3.5 million, but when you have a payroll of $45 million, why are we quibbling about it? He, and as far as catching goes, I think a Days of Roar philosophy is that you should always remember this and never get discouraged by it. Catchers take a long time. Good catchers, it's rare when you're really young and really good. So guys are 25, 26, 27, 28. So when you're looking at even a guy like Dingler, who's super athletic and had a pretty solid year. I mean, not perfect, but solid. He's going to take another year. Okay. So let's not, they don't have anything to replace it. It's not that easy to find backup catchers. I would say Carson Kelly is almost a lock to be coming back. Okay.
For sure.
All right. Javi Baez, if we spend longer than 14 seconds on this discussion of whether he's coming back or not, I'm going to be insulted. Okay.
Mark, he's coming back. He's coming back. I can't write that yet, but he's coming back.
Yeah.
4 years, $98 million player option. He's opting in. Tigers are stuck with him. I'm going to tell you the game plan real quick. They need him to work on some things in the offseason. They need him to change the bat path and some of what he's doing at the plate, of course. But also, the big thing is he needs to be an elite defender at shortstop. That's the number one thing. He can just be an elite defender. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. They're stuck paying him anyway.
That was about as elite of a defensive year at shortstop. I can't remember the last time I saw a shortstop play that well for the Tigers. He was
well, Mark, real quick, let me give you my take on that is yes, a ton of elite plays, amazing, spectacular plays that nobody else can make, but there were also some routine plays that he didn't make very well. And that's the trade-off, right? He makes so many amazing plays.
Part of the Javi Baez experience, brother.
Right. And my point is, let's try to do both. Let's try to make all the routine plays and also make the spectacular plays. And if you do that, everyone's gonna be pissed about the bat. No one's gonna be happy about that. But the point is at least you can be super, super, super serviceable as a shortstop, as the guy there. Your defense, that part of your game, A+ across the board, no question about it. He needs to bring that.
Difference maker. And we've talked about Javi a lot. We'll talk about him more. And by the way, so, look, he needs to be able just to get back to hitting 240 with 20 jacks. I don't think
he's got to get on the fastball. He must get on the fastball.
So let's share this. You talked to him for a few minutes before everybody got out of there. You had a nice talk with him. Tell me some of the feedback you got from him.
Yeah, quick inside clubhouse story is he told me before the game that he would talk to me, and he said, I promise I'll talk to you after. I said, well, it's Miggy's day. He goes, no, I'll talk to you. I'll be here. So went up to him after. I said, man, you keep your word. He said, always. And so I appreciate that about Javi all year. It gets very overlooked. He is somebody who is very critical of himself and his performance and isn't afraid to own it all the time. So yeah, I mean, he's pissed. He's disappointed. He's frustrated. Nothing's working for him. He talks about the fact that he can't see the ball. He doesn't mean like actually see the ball, but like he just can't see spin. He can't pick it up. He can't pick up fastball or slider or, is this pitch going to be inside the strike zone or outside the strike zone? Like he just isn't picking those things up. That's problem number one. That's like very, very, very concerning. The other thing too is like he's just got to get on the fastball again. And he talked about that a little bit. Like he's just not getting to the fastball, beating it to the spot. Go look at his numbers. I don't have them on me right now, but they'll be in a story at some point where
sub 200.
It's bad. It's bad. It's really bad. And so, yeah, I mean, he wants to put in the work. He wants to start seeing live pitching earlier. The Tigers are going to have to make some significant changes with him. They're going to have an exit meeting with him. I don't want to share. I don't know exactly why. I don't know what those exact changes they wanted to make are, but they wanted to make some pretty significant changes to what he's doing. And he's going to have to really work at it in the offseason. The question is going to be, what does he show up to, in spring training like what kind of a guy is he going to be? And can he carry that throughout a year? Can he stay consistent when he does make some of these adjustments? He didn't make any adjustments during the regular season. Go look at the numbers. They're all the same, top to bottom. It was piss poor all year offensively. So no changes in the regular season. I get it. It's hard to make those changes, when you're playing day in, day out. But he's got to work on changes this offseason. He must make changes if he wants to be productive offensively. And if he's not going to be productive offensively, he better be A+ across the board at shortstop. No question about it. Absolute lockdown.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to tolerate another offensive season like this. So I will go on record as saying I will be flabbergasted if he does not allow himself to go into a hitting lab, whether it's just with the Tigers coaches in someplace like Florida or in Lakeland, or if they go to Seattle to go to Driveline, go in the lab. For
as much as they're paying him, they should just fly those guys out to Puerto Rico.
Well, I don't think the equipment, for the 10 days, for the 7 to 10 days, they need to be in a controlled environment for lots of reasons. I think Javi needs to acknowledge there's issues and try to seek the technology that will allow him to understand why there's issues and how they can repair them. And that's a place to start. Once they give him a base, he can start working on things in Puerto Rico and see if he can rebuild himself to 75% of what he used to be at the plate. There should be no excuse for another season like this. And I want to remind everybody, the last Tiger hitter to really struggle to hit the fastball, couldn't beat it to the spot, hit 31 home runs this year. So when we left a year ago, Spencer Turnbull, basically, we didn't really know what to do with him, but we were praying he would make some tweaks and some changes and be mature about it and work on his craft. And lo and behold, you got all of those things. And so I would expect that Javi Baez is a pretty prideful guy. He's getting the money either way. He can see the team is on the upswing and he can be an important part of it. So I will be shocked if he isn't willing to do the work necessary to become productive. So that's my 2 cents on Javi Baez. So, all right, let's get to the elephant in the room. There were a lot of messages sent today. Everybody's got an opinion. All our buddies have opinions. We have opinions. So talk to me about the only pitcher that threw 150 innings, that was a 3.5 WAR pitcher, that pitched with a hurt finger, and they basically have to make a decision about, do they want to keep him or do they not want to keep him for his $49 million he's owed? Where do you think this Erod saga is going to go?
All right, so this is just me reading the room of all parties involved. This is my prediction on how this is going to happen. I don't like to do predictions normally, but in this case, I feel pretty strongly about this prediction.
And this is prediction that is based on today. There's no doubt this can change in a heartbeat too. Let's just say that either way. Go ahead.
Oh gosh, Mark, this is not just a prediction based on today. This is a prediction based on the last 2 years, but okay. I have no sense that that Eduardo Rodriguez is going to opt into his contract. I believe that Eduardo Rodriguez is going to opt out of his contract. I also believe that the Tigers will not negotiate a new deal with him. He will become a free agent and he will look to get paid in free agency, and the Tigers will not bring him back. Scott Harris did say today that the Tigers have not had and will not have any contract discussions with Rodriguez or his agent, Gene Motto, until Rodriguez makes a formal decision. That formal decision is not due until after the World Series. After that happens, there is a short window of negotiating where a team like the Tigers, because they had Eduardo Rodriguez on their team, can negotiate, and that's the only team that Erod can negotiate with. So there would be that small window where it's like less than a week, where the Tigers could then negotiate with Erod a new contract if they wanted to. I do not get the sense that they will do that. I get the sense that Erod will opt out. The Tigers will not try to bring him back, and he will then go and become a free agent. And that is just the sense that I have as we are right now, today, based on things that I heard today, based on things that I've heard for the last 2 years.
All right. So I'm in the minority among, people that are read. Okay. And I don't write anything, but I do have an opinion. I'm in the minority where I want Detroit to keep Erod. Okay. Everybody else is not necessarily predisposed to keeping him. Okay. So what I am going to say is I find it hard to believe that they're not willing to have a discussion about the parameters to stay. And I would hope that Eduardo communicates within reason to his agent who, look, so far, as far as dealing with Eduardo Rodriguez, using the trade deadline as a precursor and input into some of this discussion, okay? I have not been impressed at how Eduardo's agent has handled all this, A. But at the same time, I have not necessarily been impressed with how Scott Harris has handled it either. So either you value Eduardo as a pitcher, as a mentor to the staff, and what value he brings, or you don't, because if you do, then at least you want to find out what the cost of doing business is. Now, if you don't, and you're mad that he had issues last year, and you're mad that his finger hurt this year, and he didn't allow you to acquire prospects from the Dodgers, and et cetera, and it's going to become a finger-pointing contest, then I guess we don't really need to discuss Eduardo Rodriguez too much. But to allow an asset that can throw 150 innings, and he would be the only pitcher on their staff that could throw 150 innings of 3.5 or better baseball, who's pitched in playoff games, who's left-handed, who is consistent. If you are just going to wave at him walking out the door, and when I say wave, it's more like giving him the finger when he's walking out the door, then I just don't understand why you are letting quality. You're not going to love every human being on your baseball team. So what are you doing to replace?
I don't think it's that. But let me throw a hypothetical out there at you. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that the Tigers do end up negotiating a contract with Eduardo Rodriguez, and they have that short window after the World Series. His decision to opt out becomes formal. He gets the time to just talk only to the Tigers. And maybe the Tigers say, sure, we'll bite. Like, let's talk. What are you thinking? And Eduardo Rodriguez demands a no-trade clause in his new reworked deal, and the Tigers do not. There's your sticking point. Case closed. That's really what it's going to come down to at the end of the day, even if they do negotiate, right? Because you really think Scott Harris is going to want to go around and do this again at any point, during the duration of the contract?
No, but here's
Eduardo Rodriguez, I believe, will demand the no-trade clause.
Well, here's what
will be a sticking point.
But here's what I have to say. I think that if Eduardo's agent is tone deaf and isn't paying attention to how the league is going to value him, all right? I think it's pretty easy to understand how the league is going to value Eduardo Rodriguez, all right? He's not a cup of tea for everybody. He's got a ceiling on how much people are going to pay him. I don't think they're paying him over 4 years. I think
4 and 60, 4 and 65.
Oh, I think it's 4 for 80. That's what I think his market value is to me. Okay. I think when it comes to a no trade, there's a way to compromise with this, which is I totally grasp the reasoning behind his demand for a no trade. And I also am sensitive to the idea of the Tigers' fear of the no trade. So the compromise becomes, all right, the first year of the contract, if I'm going to re-up with you, I want a no trade for year one. And I think the Tigers could probably live with year one having a no trade. Okay. I don't think they'd argue too hard on that. It's what happens in year 2, 3, and 4. So maybe in year 2, there's no trade, or maybe there's only 5 teams, but that's what I would push for. I had a talk with somebody today and I kind of suggested this. I don't think other teams are going to bend that much, both in the salary, the length, the no trade aspect, much more than I'm discussing. Now, we're just speculating. Maybe we don't know what the hell we're talking about. But I think that you and I are usually pretty reasonable about this stuff and we're pretty informed. He has value, but he only has value to certain people. And I don't think that Eduardo Rodriguez wants to go pitch for the Kansas City Royals next year either. So I think he likes it here. He's been honest about that. I think that's genuine. I think he likes the players. He likes the mentoring. He sees where they're going. And there's probably a trade-off on the money and the term.
The only way I see this thing working out is if they, obviously I don't think they're going to agree on the idea of this no trade clause. And you're right. Like there are a lot of things that Eduardo Rodriguez is going to be asking for. It's going to be years, it's going to be money, and it's going to be, a limited no trade clause of some type. So do they agree on that from the onset? Again, and I'm just kind of speculating at how some of this could play out. I don't know if it's going to play out this way, but I don't think they agree on that. And I think that would force him then to walk into free agency. And you know what? Maybe by the end of free agency, spring training's getting close. Eduardo Rodriguez is not getting what he wants from teams, and he walks back to the Tigers and he says, "Take me back. Take me back. I'm sorry. I was wrong about my value. I was wrong about people looked at me." Like again, maybe that could work out in that way where he comes back and it's end of January and he needs a deal and goes back to the Tigers and says, "Yep, screw the no trade. Like let's just link up, make a deal. I like my time here." I can see maybe that happening, but in terms of actually coming to a deal before, free agency officially opens and it actually gets going and all these different teams can start talking to Eduardo Rodriguez and vice versa, I don't think the Tigers are coming to a deal with him by that point. That's my take on it. That's my opinion. I just don't see it happening. And it has nothing to do with the Tigers not liking Eduardo or Eduardo not liking the Tigers, because I think genuinely, AJ Hinch really likes Eduardo Rodriguez. And I think Eduardo Rodriguez really likes the Tigers and AJ Hinch. And I think Scott Harris likes both of them too. But I don't think that they're in a spot where either of those parties are going to make a decision that the other one is going to like. That's just where I'm at.
I think it remains to be seen. I think I've said my piece about this, and I'll be fascinated to see how Scott Harris navigates this. Hopefully he does it in a mature way that he leaves himself some wiggle room to improve his team. He did an absolutely horrendous job at the trade deadline. We've gone over that enough times. So I hope he's learned something and he keeps in mind, ways to do this that gives himself options. All right, we're going to take our last break. We'll be back in a minute. All right, so 78 and 84, won a game more than 2021, 37 and 44 at home, 41 and 40 on the road. Really good things, really good September, October. Killed the Central, died a guillotine death against the AL East. I mean, give me your feelings about the year. I mean, we've kind of gone over this so many times. To me, the single most important thing we learned about here, why don't we do this instead? You tell me the 4 or 5 things you learned about this team in 2023, what you liked, what you hated.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick about it, but just to quote Chris Ilitch, I'm pleased with the progress. I think that we have seen a pretty decent jump, and I think that that's important to note. I mean, this team plays hard. This team plays to the end. They battle. They're bought in. There's team chemistry. That's real. There's a culture that's been built. You can definitely see it day in and day out. When I'm in the clubhouse and I'm getting a chance to see these guys interact with each other, that's there. And then also, too, I think AJ Hinch has done a really good job of setting that tone. And I think there's a lot of bright things to look at. I mean, there was a lot of development, a lot of improvement. There were also guys that maybe didn't pan out the way the Tigers were expecting, Nick Maton being one of those players. But I also thought that there were developmental pieces along the way. You see Torkelson hitting, 31 home runs. Jake Rogers breaks out and hits 20 plus homers as well. Kerry Carpenter was really good for most of the season until he sputtered towards the end. Riley Green, always good if he can just stay healthy. So there are some pieces to be encouraged about on the pitching side, of course, too. You can look at, Tarek Skubal coming back and just absolutely dominating with some tweaks that they were able to make. And I thought that was really impressive. Tyler Holton was a great story for the Tigers. Andy Ibanez, don't sleep on Andy Ibanez. So there were some positives along the way. I was kind of joking when I said, quoting Chris Ilitch, pleased with the progress. He said that back in June 2022, or maybe it was July 2022 at that point. But regardless, there was progress this year, real progress. And that's positive for sure, but there is still a long way to go. But this team is going to play hard. This team is going to battle. They are never going to give up on games. Even when they were out of the playoff mix, they played very well towards the end of the season. They played very, very well. And they played clean. They didn't give up. I really appreciated that as a baseball fan and someone who just really enjoys the game, to see a team that didn't quit.
Top of story for 2023. Team played all 162. Played every game hard. Competed. It's the first part of learning how to win. You need to learn how to do that. It's called being professional. And that's the first part of being a team. The second part is getting talent. Third part is getting productivity out of the talent. And I think they did a lot of those things this year. I think Detroit showed Major League Baseball that they know how to take pitchers and optimize them. If you would have, I've said this many, many times, and we'll keep it short, but if you would have told me that what Reese Olson was, I told Raj Castillo this today, because he saw him more than anybody before he came up. If you would have told me Reese Olson in May was going to be what Reese Olson was in September, I would have probably had you checked into a rehab facility. I mean, there is... seriously, the guy could not locate 2 fastballs for strikes in a row. Come on. And he was getting creamed in Toledo. And the beauty of what he did this year was so he starts out great, starts getting taken advantage of by making mistakes in the strike zone, and not really a great fastball pitcher when he first was recalled. And what did he look like in September? It was like just a appointment view watching. He looked like, how many games did he throw 6 innings of 0 or 1 hit in September.
I mean, look, if the Tigers are in the postseason right now, like, who are you prioritizing putting on the mound?
It's Skubal and Olsen, dude. It's Erod's throwing game 3. Let's be reasonable.
Yep,
so
I know.
Just that itself. I was laughing with Raj today, and I said, if somebody would have told you that Reese Olson and Sawyer Gibson-Long were going to be lights out in the major leagues in September, you would have looked at that person like, are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Okay. And that is where you have to tip your hat to guys like Pimentel, the Erie pitching coach, Gabe Rebus, Fetter, Nieves, Long. The Tigers have proven that they understand how to develop pitching. And, it'll probably help them in the offseason. They'll do another kind of deal that's similar to Lorenzen.
And that's another reason why I don't think Eduardo Rodriguez is even going to come back. They don't need him. They don't need him. I mean, they've got guys they can optimize. Scott Harris clearly has an eye for the free, especially in the free agent market.
I got a guy who's a free agent they can optimize.
He's going to cost a lot of money, isn't he?
Aaron Nola. Okay. There you go.
You get my point though. Is like that's kind of another reason of like, look, these guys can optimize pitchers, and there's a lot of pitchers in this organization. A lot of pitchers. Yeah,
listen to me. You got a $45 million payroll. Stop being the smartest guy in the room. You got to lay down a baseline. Then you can add on top of it. All right. So.
Well, I think we can talk about that. This is an
argument. Listen, we have weeks and weeks and weeks to argue about this. I had the 40-man roster up. I wanted to walk through a bunch of keep or cut guys tonight. We're not going to do that. We got next week. We got nothing but time. We got to figure out an Evan Petzold Halloween costume. We got lots of stuff to do in coming weeks. All right?
I know. And I wanted to talk, and I wanted to get into other things too, right? Like I wanted to get into what Scott Harris said today about building a team and, complementing a core versus building a core and kind of what that looks like. I think AJ Hinch's comments about his commitment are important too. And then of course go through the roster, but we're out of time this week. So that's a teaser.
We talked a bunch of times this week. Did I give you my drop of who I wanted them to sign to, my 1 or 2 year free agent? Did I tell you that the other night or I didn't? I'll tell you when we're done. We'll talk about it next week because we got plenty of time to talk about it. I personally thought it was pure genius if he would come here, but
I might disagree.
Yeah, it's where the roster is right now. They still need a lot of things to go right, but I said this to someone else today. They're at the point in time if a few things go right. And then Colt Keith is actually as good a hitter as we think he is. And then they added a couple of other short-term but not inexpensive pieces. They could win 85 or more games next year. That's my opinion.
We did this a few weeks ago. Catcher, Jake Rogers. First base, Spencer Torkelson. Jace Young in there somewhere at second base or third base. Javier Baez, you're stuck with him at shortstop. Colt Keith, third base, second base, somewhere in there. Riley Green, corner outfield. Parker Meadows, center field. Kerry Carpenter, Justin Henry Malloy, right field /DH. Bench, Carson Kelly, Matt Vierling, Wenzel Perez, somebody else in that mix too. That's not bad. And if those guys click, there's your core. So here's what
I'll tell you about that after further thought. It's real simple. Right now, bench right now is Andy Ibanez, Zach McKinstry, and it's one of the better benches in baseball if those two guys are on your bench. Okay?
With guys ready in Toledo, like a Wenzel Perez, ready to go in Toledo. I mean, that's not bad.
Ryan Kreidler, pretty good bench piece. Okay?
Yep.
Good glove. Wenzel's a good, so that part we're not worried about. What we do need is we need a bat. We need a right-handed bat, especially if Jace Young is going to play third base, let's say, after July 1st next year. You got a lot of left-hand hitters. If you had a right-handed bat that could hit 25 dongs, that seems like it's a really, really solid idea. of how they can flesh out a lineup. And, we'll talk next week a little bit about who those options might be. And I also think you're going to get 20 homers from Javi Baez. So if you had 25 homers from a bat they picked up and 20 homers from Javi Baez to a maturing lineup, and a second baseman that maybe hits 18 to 20 homers, it gets pretty interesting when you start discussing. All right, we'll discuss more of this stuff next week. All right. I know you have a big date with your pillow that's coming up here soon, that you can have a nice sleep and not really do anything except get up and make some coffee and write a story tomorrow, which will just be a pleasure for you. I have an 8:30 appointment with Braden Michael Gorash tomorrow, which I cannot wait to do. So if you want to come visit me tomorrow morning by 9:30, I will be at Beverly Park watching my 2-year-old grandson play in the sand and go up and down all kinds of climbing equipment. So if you want to come visit me, I'll be there. I would like to thank our executive producer, Kirk Crawford, our other executive producer, Anjanette Delgado, and the man that saves us every week, Robin Chan, for my play escape partner tomorrow morning, Braden Michael Gorash, and my partner, Evan Petzold, who survived a very rigorous baseball season. I would like to say, peace.